Good evening, Canby, and welcome to the November 19th, 2014 regular City Council meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stay standing for a moment of silence for our men and women in the service and protection of our country. Great, thank you. First thing on our agenda this evening is the swearing in of a new police officer and the promotion of another. With that, I'll turn that over to Chief and the judge.
Well, we'll start with, how about we start with our swearing in process, and we'll go ahead and introduce you to Bradley Schaefer. Bradley, where are you? There you are. Please stand there. So I'd like you to welcome Brad Schaefer, or Bradley Schaefer, and his official hire date was on June 16th. He just got out of the academy, so on the 7th of November, so now he's in his training capacity here at the police department. His immediate family members include his mother Jamie and his father Mike Schaefer, who they also recently moved from the island of Maui here and currently live and reside in Monument, Oregon, about 6 hours from here. There's no direct route, as most of you might know. He has a sister, Alyssa Green, who's married to her husband and have 2 children in Albany, Oregon, so a little family closer. After high school, Bradley joined the Navy, served there for 4 years, working as an aviation electrician. He moved around a lot of times in different places in the Navy. He did his basic training in Chicago, went to Pensacola, Florida, and Coronado as well. Before hiring him here, he worked as a supervisor on the island of Maui, and he worked at the Grand Wailea Hotel doing security and dignitary protection work there. And he's had a neat opportunity to, because of that position, to meet some interesting people. Most of you might recognize actor Adam Sandler, actress Halle Berry, singer groups such as Maroon 5, Heart, Neil Diamond, and have been known to talk to a few sports organizations such as the Boston Red Sox and things like that. So kind of fun. Bradley also conducted training at the Maui Police Academy, assisting in testing of firearms and taser, Hawaiian state law, and scenario-based training exercises. He enjoys the outdoor activities, hunting, fishing, surfing, but as he told me, only when the water's warm. So that's not going to happen much here.
So much for surfing here.
So when I asked Bradley why he wanted to work for Canby Police Department, he said he felt that there was a real positive energy or camaraderie with the members of the police department when he went on a ride-along. He really liked that, and he also felt really connected to the community. When the police had an interaction with the community, he felt a real positive connection that way. And as a result, these are the only, he applied with us twice. Did make it the first time, but this is the only department he's applied with. And so we're very appreciative of that. He attended the 16 Weeks Academy, and he graduated, as I said, on the 7th of November, Academy 345. And so today, I'd like to welcome Bradley Schaefer.
Thank you.
Go ahead and proceed with the swearing-in ceremony, and the judge will take over from here.
So, raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Bradley James Schaefer,
I, Bradley James Schaefer,
being first duly sworn, depose and say that I will support and uphold the constitutions
that I will support and uphold the constitutions
of the United States and the state of Oregon,
of the United States and the state of Oregon,
and the charter and ordinances
of
the city of Canby, remaining in compliance with the professional standards established by the department's mission, professional code of ethics, department policies and directives, and will faithfully perform the duties
I will faithfully perform the duties
of police officer
of police officer
for the city of Canby, Oregon,
for the city of Canby, Oregon,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. So date it and sign it there, and then we get the chief to do the same. So you want to keep the rest of that? And I'll just-
Yeah, that'd be great. Perfect. So, Brad, put your pen on your bag. I'll let you do the last part.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
All right. So, second part here, I'd like to introduce to you Mike Smith, Officer Mike Smith, who's been promoted officially to sergeant on the 1st of November, and most of you probably know Mike Smith. So today he was again, he's our sergeant today, promoted on the 1st of November, and joining us today, I can get some of them right here. I know his wife is here, Lindsay, and they have 2 children together. They have Riley and Colby. And I think you have some other family members here. I'll let you introduce them.
My parents, Paul and Julie Smith, in the back.
Very good. So prior to coming to Canby years ago, he worked as a supervisor for the United Postal Service, or Parcel Service. During his high school years, he worked as a police cadet and later a reserve officer for the Silverton Police Department. In 2004, he left UPS and was hired full-time as a police officer there for the city of Silverton and was there for approximately 4 years. Mike was hired by Canby Police Department in 2008, and he's had an opportunity to work quite a few assignments, various uniform assignments, patrol, detectives, also a Metro Gang task force. He also works as a field training officer, as a coach, and he also is the elected Canby Police Association president. And a little bit about the South Metro Gang Task Force. I'll read this a little bit. But last year we recognized Mike for his efforts there. But during Mike's 3.5-year assignment as a detective, he made a significant contribution to the development of the South Metro Task Force. For most of you might remember, that was a brand new task force that we created that we really had a lot to do with the development of and the implementation of, and we had that going for a couple of years. Mike was part of that group that started that along with Frank Schoenfield, our sergeant. Anyway, he had a substantial positive impact on the mission and the goals of both the task force and the Canby Police Department. And as a member of the task force, Mike assisted in the formation and development of the procedures of the unit. He conducted investigations, made arrests, and solved long-term trend crime issues related that had a negative impact on our community and the surrounding areas of Clackamas and Marion counties. In total, Mike was responsible for writing over 45 federal and state search warrants, seizing 19 rifles and handguns, 1 sawed-off shotgun, 2 grenade fuses, and seized an estimated over $115,000 in cash that was taken from drug dealers and then used back into police funds to help with the continuing of drug investigations. During Mike's assignment as a detective, his successes there and his accomplishments are unequaled by any prior member, any of the detectives before. So we really wanted to recognize him. We did that last year, but that's part of who Mike is as we look at him today. So I look at Mike as someone who's going to continue that type of work and success as a supervisor. So we're very excited about that. So we are here today to welcome Mike. And we kind of do a little bit of a tradition sometimes, but sometimes the wife is quite a substantial partner in one's career development. So we're going to ask Mike's wife if she'd like to come up and just get into that. There you go. Thanks, Mike. Thank you. That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Well, congratulations, I guess Sergeant Smith and Officer Schaefer. Pacific City is not a bad surfing area, though you will need probably a dry suit.
And a hot toddy.
And a hot toddy afterwards, yeah. All right. Well, thank you, guys, and thank you very much. And to all the other officers, thank you for your guys' work. Appreciate it. Give a minute to let them
Evacuate.
clear out. All right, next on the agenda this evening is communications. Anything from staff yet on that? No? Okay. First opportunity this evening for citizen input and community announcements. If you are so inclined and would like to come up to the podium and give an announcement or ask us anything, seeing no one, all right, we will move on. Mayor's business, not a whole lot to report on. This evening, we did a work session on the City of Canby's land use, a little bit of a planning session and study session for the council, as well as for our new city manager to get up to speed on all things Canby related, and just talking about our current growth patterns and things around what we look at in terms of housing for the near future and whatnot. So it was a great work session on that, and we definitely have some planning ahead of us for future growth in Canby. So thank you, Rick, for putting that together. Two big things kind of went hand in hand for me this month so far was C4, so the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, and then the regional task force that I'm on. So both were just heading to deal with the creation of a regional area commission on transportation. So C4 was more of a recap of what's been going on, and then on Monday was the updated task force deliberations on where we're at and where we're headed. A big piece of conversation was we were to the point where we're breaking down so there's 4 counties involved in the area commission, so Hood River, Clackamas County, Washington County, and Multnomah County. And so it was a divvying up of who would represent, or how many different people from each county would represent. And 2 meetings ago was a very lively conversation on the fact that Portland or Multnomah County has 8 representatives, Washington and Clackamas have 6, and Hood River have 4. And then there's a subcategory that was pretty heavy loaded with representatives from Metro, Port of Portland, Friends of 10,000 Trees. There's just a lot of, it was a very Multnomah County-centric subcommittee that was being added, and so that turned into a bigger conversation this last time, and Clackamas County went with trying to level the playing field, so everybody had 6 across the board, and that pretty much went down in a blaze of glory. So it ends up being that it's going to be an 8-6-6-4 kind of panel when we get into the area commission, so stay tuned for more on that. This afternoon, Renata held a great open house today it was a development open house, so we, as maybe know, we're getting ready to move forward with our civic building, and so we have a couple of properties that are going to be hitting the market, so Renata put together an open house for developers to come and kind of get a tour of the buildings and hear kind of what we were shooting for and what we're looking for from them. That they'll turn in by the 9th of January for us to kind of look at and review. And I was not knowing what to expect. We only had, I think, 3 interested parties, but we've had 15 to 20 different developers. Is that about the number that have been contacting the city about our city properties and what's going to be going on with that? I was very encouraged by one of the developers that were there. They were from Eugene. They're representing a hotel group, and several comments about the bones of the city, that they really appreciate the infrastructure and the planning that we as a city have done over the last 10, 15 years, and they really see that there's just a deliberate nature, hence our planning study session today, too, about where the city was going and what it was going to be doing, and so they can tell that we have a tremendous, there's a tremendous amount of care taken in our city, both by the people that live here and also by city staff. So that says a lot when you've got developers that can see that kind of care being taken care of. So that was a really great meeting, and I was be anxious to hear from Renata later, maybe how the tour went and what they had to say. So lots going on, lots of fun things. And with that, we'll go into liaison reports with Councilor Rocha.
Thank you. I don't have anything tonight.
Okay, that was quick. Thanks. Councilor Inslee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I won't cover C4. I went to the meeting, but I think you did a sufficient job of encapsulating the discussion. On the Main Street Promotions Committee, we already talked last week about going to the street dance meeting and looking forward to more development on that as it goes, and I'll have more to report in coming months. But I wanted to say Light Up the Night is happening December 5th, and we're looking for parade entries. So if you have a group or business that you would like to have a float or walkers in the parade, get a hold of Jamie at the planning department. She's actually in Main Street, but she's in the planning building, so you can go and meet with her face-to-face or give her a call or get her on the Facebook page. Also, we're looking for Who Lights Up Canby, and this is something we've started a couple of years ago. Am I right, Jamie? It was just about 3 years ago, I think. So somebody that does kind of goes the extra mile in lighting up Canby every day. So we're accepting nominations until, I don't write that part in, end of November, so that they can have a vote on Facebook. So if you know who lights up Canby, give your nominations to Jamie as well. On the Riverside Neighborhood Association front,
The police department lights up Canby every day. 365 days a year.
you do.
And you have
This is true.
And you have the cars that already do that, so.
And you light up the beginning of the parade, and we thank you for that as well.
Canby Utility literally lights up Canby.
This is true. Bob Cornelius, you light up Canby every day, literally.
At least every night.
All right, now the comic relief portion of the meeting is over. We'll get back to the business here. Riverside Neighborhood Association, we did have a meeting, a kind of a subset of the Traffic Safety Commission, met with Rick, our city administrator, and thank you for setting aside time for us on that. We also met with the chief of fire, and just kind of discussing what the next steps in developing design standards for bump outs and islands and this kind of thing, or the method by which we'll determine if they are even needed. And as we've since found out, some study work has already been done on this a few years ago. So we'll just be pulling that plan out and revisiting it a little bit and seeing if we need to make an update in that plan. So it's kind of a work in progress, and we'll be updating that in the future as well. Other than that, I did do some community events, some holiday bazaars at Hope Village and the fairgrounds. That was kind of fun. Councilor Dale should be proud. I actually stepped into Christmas a little bit before Thanksgiving this year.
Very good. Improvement every year.
As well as I attended some events at First Friday. But the most interesting thing, I think, was I had my husband in tow, so he makes everything interesting. But we went to the open house for Global Stainless, and that's an outfit who makes brew tanks. And they just relocated. They had a smaller shop here in town, but they moved into the industrial park. They purchased property in the industrial park, so I like seeing that investment in our town. And they are just thrilled with their new space. They have better flow, better use of their workspace, so they'll be making their brew tanks and keg washers, and they even have an automated keg washer, which apparently is a pretty spectacular thing to have. And they'll be moving maybe into some distilling. So that was fun, and I think that sums it up.
Great.
Thank you, Mr.
Great
Mayor.
report. Thank you. Councilor Coleman.
Been a busy couple weeks.
Mr. Mayor, there was no library board meeting this month, but I would just encourage everyone to visit the library, go online and see some of their programming. They just do a really fine job, and very fortunate to have a group. On our traffic safety group, over the last month or so, Bob Backstrom and myself have had the chance to sit down with the fire chief and just discuss a variety of safety measures, because the police have really been a fixture with the traffic safety. Can't thank them enough. Chief's been to many of our meetings, and we really want to keep the fire and the police at the forefront of anything we do. We recently had the opportunity, as Tracy said, to sit down with the fire chief and the city manager and discuss a variety of safety measures. Matilda Dees and Brian Brown from the planning have been very helpful in that, and it's kind of a work in progress, but just our community is so fortunate to have such a great team of folks that are doing a great job. On our next traffic safety meeting on December 5th, we've invited Redflex. They have the camera citations that can be issued, and they're going to come and give a presentation. And we've invited city manager and the fire chief and certainly the police chief and those interested to hear what they have to say and answer some questions. And so that's what we're doing, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you, sir. Council President Dale.
Mr. Mayor, on the Canby utility front, they are continuing their search for a general manager. Right now, it's in the recruiting phase, so we won't hear much news there for a little while, but hopefully they're getting a lot of really good candidates. To do a little cross-pollination in terms of information with the Urban Renewal Agency, the agency has engaged the firm of Lenore LLC as its construction manager on the Civic Center project, which is the combined library and city hall. That's a huge first staffing milestone, and now we're looking forward to the selection of the architect, which will be the next position to fill. And hopefully at the next city council meeting, we'll have some even better news to share for you. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Parker.
Mayor, thank you. At the request of the high school, the mayor and I met to talk about the continuum of students, jobs, and internships, and the really innovative type of programs that Canby High School has in getting students into internship programs, job experience, and that sort of thing. And they wanted to have a brainstorming session to talk about that. It certainly, in my mind, has a strategic element with our economic development that and our livability as a city, that we're doing quite a bit to try and bring jobs here. It seems to me that we should do quite a bit to have people who live here get into those jobs. So I've encouraged the mayor to have a discussion with the city administrator about putting this on for a study session, possible budget implications, and further discussion by the council.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, I will be attending the Canby Area Transit meeting tomorrow night and then next Monday night with our Planning Commission, so I'll make my next report the first Wednesday in December.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, we'll move in and for the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move for passage of the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the minutes of the November 5th, 2014 City Council regular meeting.
Great. Motion's been made by Council President Dale. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Council President Dale, seconded by Council Rocha to approve the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the minutes of the November 5th, 2014 City Council regular meeting. Any discussion on that at all? Changes? Nothing? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great, passes 6-0. Resolutions and ordinances.
The first item we have is Resolution 1202. This is requesting designation of a vertical housing development zone, and Renata Mingelberg, our Economic Development Director, is here to present it.
At our October 15th meeting, you unanimously directed staff to pursue a vertical housing zone, and you directed us to use the downtown commercial zone as the boundaries because it's the only area in the community that allows mixed-use development, which is core to the vertical housing incentive. The reason that you had wanted to pursue this is because it provides a powerful incentive to encourage mixed-use development, ground floor retail, and then 2 to 4-story upper-level housing, which is something that was identified in our vision that was recently created, as well as council goals supporting a vibrant downtown, creating more demand for restaurants, closer proximity to amenities like the library, the bus service, et cetera. So accordingly, we've been moving forward. We've been notified in taxing districts twice, have met with the school district and the fire district this evening. The fire district is expecting to approve a letter of support, which they'll be submitting as part of the application. Hopefully, you'll approve the resolution that I have before you this evening, in which case I would be prepared to submit the application by the end of the week. The state department that would approve this could approve it relatively quickly, but in any case, within a month by January, which is the time frame that we would be looking at development proposals for you. So with that brief introduction, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments from up here? No, I think this is a great tool to be adding to our toolbox in terms of business recruitment, and kind of came up today in conversation at our open house as a piece to keep in mind, and was great to have, but to be flexible and with it as well. So I think it's a great add. So thank you, Renata, for that. Great. Motion, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Clint.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council adopt Resolution 1202, a resolution requesting designation of a vertical housing development zone.
I will second.
Motion made by Councilor Coleman, second by Councilor Rocha to approve Resolution 1202, a resolution requesting designation of a vertical housing development zone. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, passes 6-0. Thank you, Renata.
Thanks,
Renata.
The next item we have is Resolution 1203. This is authorizing an IGA with the City of Portland for the Region Project, and Chief Smith is here to talk about it.
We're going to argue about who's on first here.
So Melody's going to come up and join me. Because she's really the expert. She's actually our liaison and representative. I am as well, but Melody has had such a intricate part of this arrangement as far as the agreement, just because of how it impacts our record keeping and some of the other pieces as well, to include court. And so as a result of that, she's been our representative, and she's doing quite well. The biggest change, I think, this has come before you before, and we've approved it. There's really nothing that's changed about this particular agreement, other than there is a slight dollar change. We were guessing around that $59, $60, and there's a maintenance fee that we finally settled on, and I think it's $61, that is coming before you today. So with that, that's probably the biggest change, and this is finally kind of, we're getting the final pieces of that agreement nailed down, and that's why we come to you today for that. So I think more than anything, if you have questions, we can try to respond to that, but since we presented this already, we're hopeful that you guys are already comfortable with the direction we're moving in that regard.
I believe we are, but for the viewers at home, could you maybe just elaborate a little bit further on what the Region Project will do for us and how it linking to Portland it will be beneficial?
Well, it's going to be a brand new system. It's a multi-agency collaborative effort. A record-keeping management system is what we're entering to. So the old systems that we have, the Portland Police Bureau, or even the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office, that is also joining this particular program, they're old. This is a more collaborative way of sharing information that's already maintained by police agencies. It's a way to connect better when it comes to the reports that allow us to do our reports paperless in that regard, and store them and share them in its entire form without having to mail a copy or fax a copy. But it's a significant record-keeping system that's collaborative in nature. It's multi-state. Washington State, Clark County is involved in it, and the agencies in the southern end, Vancouver, For example, I think Camas and some of those other stations or agencies. You have Washington County, Multnomah County, there's Clackamas County, and Columbia counties that are involved in this, and it is continuing to grow. The goal is that really this will be a statewide use system at some point in time, is I think the direction or goal that this will be a particular project. So we're really on the front end. In a nutshell, it's a records-keeping management system. Currently what we've had in place, but it's old and not able to keep up with the current demands that are out there for us, and allow us to talk better, communicate better, share better in that way. And that's probably the most simplistic way to explain that. Anything?
Yeah, it's really two components, and one for Canby, the Clackamas County was talking for years about doing mobile report writing, where the officers would write their reports either in the car or, in the office. It didn't matter. But then what happens with those reports is instead of them being printed out and entered by hand by other people, those reports, that data in those reports is simply pushed into the record system. So not only are you getting some efficiencies in people and in how things are done, but you're also getting all of the data into the system and not just pieces of it into the system, as well as the whole text, if it's a 10-page, 20-page, 30-page report, photos, the whole 9 yards. It also does property and evidence. We'll be moving to their barcoding property and evidence system. Crime analysis will be greatly enhanced, because with all of the data that's in there, it will make it much easier to extract that and either, populate maps with it or do other kinds of analysis that we're currently not capable of doing. So it's going to be a great improvement to law enforcement here.
And speaking of the crime analysis piece, what's really nice is we're a small department, small city, so we really don't have the ability to afford a crime analysis person. But this has the capacity to allow officers to become a little bit of a crime analysis person in regard, and it's really a neat opportunity that way. And we believe there will be a cost savings in the long run, because currently, our property evidence software we're using is a separate system. There's a maintenance associated with that, or a cost associated with that. The wireless reporting was a separate system. This is all combined into one system. So the maintenance of that is going to allow us to do all these things under the same program and not have to buy multiple types of license that require maintenance and updates on a regular basis. So we think that's a very positive thing as well.
Any questions at all? All right.
Very good.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt Resolution 1203, a resolution authorizing an amendment intergovernmental agreement with the City of Portland, Oregon for the Red Gin project.
Second.
All right, motion's been made by Councilor Coleman and seconded by Councilor Hensley to adopt Resolution 1203, a resolution authorizing an amended intergovernmental agreement with the City of Portland, Oregon for the Region Project. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes 6-0.
Okay, the next item we have is ordinance 1407. This is authorizing a contract with McClure & Sons, Inc. for the wastewater treatment facility improvements project and declaring an emergency.
Okay.
Yes, I'll cover this evening. This ordinance, if approved, would authorize the execution of the contract with McClure & Sons in an amount of $1,562,622. We did receive 5 bids in response to the bid request that was submitted. The result will be multiple plant improvements throughout the plant site, and it will include replacing screening equipment, grit removal equipment, replacing the gratings, valves, electrical components, and pump control systems in the headworks, rehabilitating the solids dewatering building, rehabilitating original lime silo, replacing 27 process valves throughout the site, and replacing the weirs, baffles, and cleaning mechanism in the secondary clarifiers. Additionally, plant upgrades are proposed, which would include doubling the capacity of the effluent filtration system, construction of a new secondary byproduct pumping station, constructing a building cover over the existing grit removal channel, and something that I think the local residents will really appreciate, installing new ventilation equipment for odor control in the headworks, solids dewatering building, and biosolids storage building. Staff recommendation is approval of the proposed contract as submitted.
Great. Extensive updating, it sounds like.
Extensive. The work that's been done both by wastewater staff and by the consultant is very, very impressive.
Great. Questions or comments for Rick at all? No? Okay.
No, I'm glad we're doing something that's going to get on top of the odor issue. We've been having constituents talk to us about that for some time. So,
Well, it won't go away completely, but hopefully we can minimize the impact to the local residents.
Great.
The 10th hole at the golf course in the summertime is...
That's the one that I hear from.
And the walking trail behind the
Yes.
the facility.
There's a couple of houses over there, I think, too, that I've had a few calls from. We're working on it. We're taking steps. That's good.
Yeah, significant improvements.
Great.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Move that we adopt ordinance 1407, authorizing a contract with McClure & Sons, Inc. for the wastewater treatment facility improvement project and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, sir. Second, please.
I'll take a second.
Motion made by Councilor Ryder and seconded by Councilor Rocha to approve ordinance 1407, authorizing a contract with McClure & Sons, Inc. for the wastewater treatment facility improvement project and declaring an emergency. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Carry 6-0.
The next item we have is ordinance 1408. This is before you for second reading. This is authorizing amendment number 2 to the contract with Curran McLeod, Inc., consulting engineers for engineering services regarding 2014 wastewater treatment plant improvements.
And this is for an estimated $50,000 contract necessary to facilitate the research and work that was done to develop the bid documents and proceed with the work to be done to implement the changes that we will be spending $1.6 million on.
Well, it all comes together.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Questions, comments? No? All right. Motion, please. Go for it.
Mr. Mayor, I move for ordinance number 1408, an ordinance authorizing the City of Canby to execute amendment number 2 to the contract with Curran McLeod, Inc., consulting engineers for the engineering services regarding 2014 wastewater treatment plant improvements.
Great, thank you, sir. Second. Thank you. Motion is made by Councilor Rocha, seconded by Council President Dale to approve ordinance 1408, authorizing amendment number 2 to the contract with Curran McLeod, Inc., consulting engineers for engineering services regarding 2014 wastewater treatment plant improvements. Roll call vote. I got it, Kim. See, I got it this time.
Councilor Rocha?
Yes.
Councilor Hensley?
Aye.
Councilor Coleman?
Yes.
Councilor Dale?
Aye.
Councilor Parker?
Yes.
Councilor Ryder?
Yes.
Passes 6-0.
Okay, the next item we have is ordinance 1409. This is authorizing a contract with Power Chrysler Jeep of Newport, Oregon, Safety Vehicle Systems of Salem, Oregon, Dell of America, Motorola Solutions of America, Hot Rod DreamWorks of Canby, Oregon, and Ford Motor Credit Corporation for the lease purchase of 2 2015 Dodge Chargers with police equipment packages for the Canby Police Department and declaring an emergency. And Lieutenant Troe or Chief Smith is going to present this.
And Chief Smith, come on up. I'll get you back.
Well, anything you want to know about a car, you're with me.
Oh, really? Good evening. So this ordinance you have before you is basically the purchase of 2 2015 Dodge Charger police vehicles, which includes all the necessary equipment and outfitting, which includes like the radar, computer, the lights, the painting, and all the outfitting included. These purchases are basically a continuation of our vehicle replacement plan, which we do 2 every year. These will be marked patrol units, and they'll replace 2 older units, which both of those have well over 100,000 miles on them. The total cost for both of these vehicles equipped and outfitted is $98,436.26. This will be financed through the Ford Motor Municipal Finance Program over a 4-year period, and it's funded out of our police vehicle leasing line item, and this was approved in our this year's adopted budget.
Great. Any questions or comments for these two fine officers?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just only because the chief said that
Here you go.
oh, no. we had an expert on these vehicles. The mile per gallon on these cars?
These, all our patrol vehicles average anywhere from about 12 to 14 miles per gallon. That includes the Tahoes to the Dodge Chargers. They're very close.
Nicely done.
Okay. Only 12 to 14, though?
That's it.
Have you seen him drive?
I have seen them drive.
Lead in the foot there.
The Chargers and the Tahoes are actually pretty darn close, and I think the Tahoe actually got a mile or two better than the Charger.
Wow.
No doubt.
Don't drive them as fast.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance 1409, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute a contract with the Power Chrysler Jeep Dodge of Newport, Oregon, Safety Vehicle Systems of Salem, Oregon, Dell of America, Motorola Solutions of America, Hot Rod DreamWorks of Canby, Oregon, and Ford Motor Credit Corporation for the lease purchase of two 2015 Dodge Chargers with police equipment packages for the Canby Police Department and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Counselor.
I'll second.
Motion made by Counselor Hensley, seconded by Counselor Rocha to approve ordinance 1409, authorizing a contract with Power Chrysler Jeep Dodge of Newport, Oregon, Safety Vehicle Systems of Salem, Oregon, Dell of America, Motorola Solutions of America, Hot Rod DreamWorks of Canby, Oregon, and Ford Motor Credit Corporation for the lease purchase of two 2015 Dodge Chargers with police equipment packages for the Canby Police Department and declaring an emergency. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Pass 6-0. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Lieutenant.
All right, this evening, for next on the agenda is new business, and we have the Historical Register nomination for City Hall, and I believe that that's going to be presented by Ms. Dickel
And Carol Palmer.
and Carol Palmer. Fantastic.
Good evening. So this is Carol Palmer. She is the chair of the Historic Review Board, and she is the brains behind this operation. So we're here today to talk to you about the Historic Review Board and moving forward with a potential National Register nomination. The purpose of the Historic Review Board is to promote the history, educational, cultural, architectural, economic, and general welfare of the public, and to safeguard the city's historic and cultural heritage through the identification, preservation, and protection of structures, sites, objects, and district of cultural interest within the city. Whew. And look at that cute city hall right there. That's part of Canby's Municipal Code 16.110. Just to give you a little history, in January of 1994, the Historic Review Board was established by Ordinance 905. It was reinstated in 2013, which has allowed the city to participate with certified local government grant dollars that we were awarded and completed at the end of August 2014. So just to go over the members, we have Carol Palmer here. She's an MBA from the University of Oregon. She retired, found the Arizona State University PhD program, and then came back to Canby and has been with us since 2013. Everybody knows John Baker from the Canby Herald. He joined the Historic Review Board, has just a great interest in history. John Surlett, he moved to Canby in 2007. He's retired. He is also on our planning commission, and he volunteers at the Habitat for Humanity Restore. And then Rebecca Goodfellow, she's lived in Canby for 15 years and just is excited to make Canby a better place and preserve some of its history.
And Canby already has 3 designated landmarks under the city code, and those were established by the original Historic Review Board. And that's the William H. Bear House at 375 Northwest 3rd Avenue. For those of you that aren't familiar with these structures, I'm sure you all are, but we put in pictures and just a little write-up on each of the buildings. The William Mack House, which has recently moved, and that was the original William Mack House, the one on the left. The other one is what it looks like today. The wings are gone. And then the First Methodist Episcopal Church on Northwest 3rd Avenue, which is now the Canby Wedding Chapel.
And the Bear House.
I did the Bear House.
Yeah, in the Bear House, which is over there on 3rd Avenue. Great house. So, good.
Yeah.
So far, the Historic Review Board, in their short amount of time of meeting, has really had some great accomplishments. We applied for and received the Certified Local Government Grant, which included an intensive level survey of 5 sites in Canby, and then as was presented, I think, to the Urban Renewal Agency, 5 sites had historic facade renderings. The information from the intensive level survey will be put into plaques and move forward. And then also help to ensure that the Mack House was moved. It was going to be torn down, and the board really thought that it was an important structure. It's important to Canby's history, and so we appealed to the Planning Commission and ensured the move of that.
Yes, I believe there's a Mac up there on the parade of mayors on the wall, so we didn't want to lose sight of those. This intensive level survey, we had a survey that was done in 2009. It was more of a reconnaissance level, and so what an intensive level survey does is it gives us, we hire a contractor that is specializes in this. They come in and they actually do the research on each of the buildings, not just the building itself, but also the people and how the people that associated with that structure impacted the community and how the community in turn impacted the development of that particular site. We could not do all. There was too many. So we tried to pick sampling from around the commercial district. So we would have something that we could use as a basis for a heritage trail. Obviously, we didn't want them all jammed together. The idea, if you're going to have a heritage trail, is we'd like people to start at one end of the commercial district and then go through and hit several spots. So we spaced them out and tried to pick in each area a building that we felt would be, according to the first survey, important enough that we could get use it in a heritage trail. So you're familiar with these buildings, I'm sure, and we've put in pictures also, as well as a write-up on each one. But the City Hall, which of course you know that building. The Knight Building, which is where Red Door Antiques is now, that building served as the first City Hall on the upstairs. The Erstad Building, which is on the corner of Northwest 1st, and that's home of several shops now. I think Nails Jassy is there. The Masonic Lodge, which is on where Wallflowers Framing is, and the Oddfellows Building, which is now the Backstop Bar and Grill.
So then just to talk a little bit about the historic facade renderings, 5 buildings were chosen, and the company FFA Architectures took the historic pictures and historic uses of the building and combined it with the current uses to find a way to integrate some of those historical aspects, but that would work for the buildings. The Bettis Building, which is over on 3rd Avenue, the appliance store and the liquor store building, the Mattress World building, Canby Rental and Equipment, and then the Grand building were the 5 that were looked at. The appliance store has actually met with the city and is looking to potentially do a facade improvement, and it would include the appliance store and the liquor store. So the goal was to be able to give people another look into what their building could look like, and I would say that it was a successful step in the right direction.
We have a couple of works still in progress. The Heritage Trail, we've completed the survey, and So there's some next steps, I'll talk to those in just a minute, but also a Heritage Tree nomination, and of course, the National Register nomination for City Hall. What is a Heritage Trail? They are organized and labeled routes laid out to follow points of interest, and so you've probably seen them many places. We put in a couple of examples here, obviously the one from Aurora, and then we went all the way to the East Coast and found the Boston Women's Heritage Trail. Typically, these take many forms, but they revolve around usually the mode of transportation. So it's either a walking tour, or it's a bicycle tour, or it's a bus tour, or something like that. And we felt, for at least the first Heritage Trail that we did, that we thought a walking tour of the commercial district was probably the easiest to accomplish, and also would recognize where the majority of the historic properties are. The next step now that we've got the intensive level survey, we've got that research, is to use that verbiage that we've been given by the research establishment to create signage, plaques, also to create brochures and our website. One of the things I think we still need to think about is, okay, once we've got that, we've got the brochures, how do we then connect into the Oregon tourism, the larger program that the state has going? Because it doesn't do any good to pass out those brochures amongst ourselves. We need to get them out to the people that are going to be visiting the city. The Philander Lee Tree. This is located, if you've ever driven down 99E, you've seen the Lee Tree. It is right there by packaged containers. Oregon Travel Experience is the organization responsible for the historic markers, those blue signs that you see on the road that point travelers to attractions like a winery or a heritage farm. They are also responsible for maintaining the rest stops on the freeways, and they also have a heritage tree program. And we have gotten permission from the owner of Package Containers to list the Lee Tree. For those of you that don't know, it's probably about 140, 150 years old. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the site of Philander and Anna Lee's third home. One of the really benefits to getting it nominated and hopefully approved by the Oregon Travel Experience Board is that then gives us some visibility on their really important website, which is OregonTravel.com. And it also gives us some connections to hopefully to also into their brochures and the things that they pass out. So if someone in Nebraska is thinking about coming to Oregon, on a travel experience, they probably go to the Oregon Travel Experience website, and that's our way to get our mark there and to get some visibility. Nomination of the City Hall. The National Register of Historic Places, you've probably heard of it. There are sites, battlegrounds, buildings all across the country that are listed. This is the country's way of recognizing the significant parts of our land. Currently, Oregon has 2,000 places on the National Register. Canby has none. And I was curious, so I asked our state staff to tell us how many other cities with our the size of Canby or larger do not have any registry nominations or any registered places. And there's only about 5 others, so we're one of 6. So we're sort of an outlier. And it's really, if you look at the other places, many of them are really, really, really new, places like Happy Valley, and don't have the extensive history. Canby really has a deep history. You know, we were populated here in the 1840s, so, and we have lots of structures, so it seems like a pretty big oversight. So why City Hall? City Hall was a Public Works Administration building, and the Public Works Administration did over 17,000 projects during the New Deal era, and mainly for cities, states, counties, parks, those sorts of things. And of those 17,000 structures, they featured about several hundred of them in this book, and I think a second volume also. And Canby's is one of those several hundred out of 17,000. Canby City Hall is featured in this book, and I think in your handout that Jamie gave you, we've made some copies of this.
I didn't have the copies of that, but I can get them to you.
Okay. It has been obviously the face of the city and the center, the hub of city decision-making for over 70 years. So, and there are already 17 PWA projects, sites from Oregon on the National Register. And it just seemed appropriate that the city lead. If we're going to do some historic preservation, some nominations, that if the city set the standard for the community, that would be the way to go. The National Register process, there's a nomination, which sounds easy, but actually this is the guide. Fill out the nomination form. Oh my gosh. The State Historic Preservation Office staff has to review and make a recommendation to the State Advisory Committee, and then the National Park Service has to do the approval. The process takes about a year, so it's not fast. Benefits of listing the property. For the property owner, there are, not only does it, of course, recognize a significant part of our history and make sure that we retain that information, but it also allows the property owner to apply for some grant funding. There are some tax benefits that can be accessed both at the state level and at the federal level. At the federal level, it's actually an income tax credit for rehabilitation efforts. And now, in order to qualify for the tax benefits at the state level, there has to be a preservation plan put forward by the owner. So we've got, we have, did you make those?
Yes,
Okay.
and those are attached.
Yeah, if you have questions about how that works, we did attach the FAQs from the website, so you can see how that works. I'm sure most of the building developers, property developers in the state are pretty familiar with those.
One of the reasons, in addition to being able to apply for funding or to put it on a register, is also the heritage tourism that occurs in Oregon. 83% of leisure travelers in Oregon travel to experience places, people, activities, and things that authentically represent the past and the present. And if you remember that first picture of City Hall that was on, I think, the first slide, our City Hall today very accurately represents that past and present. The national average is 78% of those travelers, so we're far above the average. Leisure and hospitality employment accounts for 10% of jobs in the state, and cultural and heritage travelers in Oregon spend on an average $1,618 per trip.
So what we're hoping is that by establishing the Heritage Trail and then also the Lee Tree nomination, getting us that visibility with Oregon Travel Experience, and then also with beginning the process of designating some historic sites or getting them on the National Register, we've actually sort of built a nice foundation that we can start attracting more heritage tourism in Canby.
Do you have any questions?
I have a couple of questions. So, talking about the Heritage Trail, so size, for a city like Canby of this size, like what's the typical number of these kind of, I guess, historic heritage trail pieces could there be?
Well, and Canby has a lot of potential because we've just really looked at the commercial area, on this side of the tracks. There's historic properties on the other side of the tracks. We've talked about partnering with other cities, even like Aurora and Oregon City, so that you'd have a more extensive kinds of trails, so people could have options. I'm going to be on a bicycle trip, so I could hit heritage farms in across this region. So there's all sorts of options. In terms of how many in any given city, I think it just depends on what you've got available and the kind of resources that you have to put that together.
No, perfect. The other question I had regarding the Lee Tree, I know that I think every elementary school says it's second, third graders make a trip, and that is one of the sites that they go to.
Yeah.
You mentioned package container, and it does sit on their property.
It does.
What kind of partnership or work are we needing to do with them to?
They're super.
Yeah, the owners are fantastic people, and I suspect that there's probably no pushback whatsoever. But I'm just curious as we look at other items across the city, what does that partnership look like for somebody that might have something that down the road that they want to partner with, and what are we maybe envisioning for? Something like the tree specifically.
That tree, the Heritage Tree Program, there is absolutely no requirements on the owner to do anything other than you can't nominate a tree that's on private property without the owner's approval. And as soon as I got a hold of them, they were right on board. They absolutely wanted to do that. They think they get a kick out of all those school kids coming through every year and learning about the tree. We are hiring an arborist because we'll need to do some work as a city to, for the nomination form, so that the state board that reviews it knows that it's healthy and all of that sort of thing. The state provides, the Oregon Travel Experience provides the signage for that. So there's really not much that the property owner has to do other than to agree and send a letter in saying, you know, I agree that this tree should be there. There is a work involved in the nomination process.